So you're wondering why you haven't been able to go full-time in the graphic design and art space, regardless of the countless of hours you've spent on your graphic design pieces, hours you've spent on courses, and even in some cases going and getting a full graphic design degree. And yet you wouldn't even believe what holds creatives back from going into the full-time world of the industry to begin with. But before we get into that, one of the things that we have to talk about is the elements that make this obstacle a reality in the first place. Starting with something that is kind of off the grid and probably something you wouldn't expect, that is running your own business to begin with. I have talked to thousands of graphic designers across the industry that just think that they can, show up out of nowhere, create a PayPal, and start doing freelancing. And while that most of the time is true, you're gonna have to eventually cross that ethical boundary and start really taking your job seriously, registering your business, making sure that you've got your finances tracked, and other things like that. I would even go as far as to say to make a business plan and make sure that you have a marketing strategy. The next thing that a lot of creatives do that basically kind of force them into a corner to, eventually not get jobs is they're too scared to apply in the first place. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have an amazing job opportunity at their fingertips and they would absolutely kill for it. And then when it finally comes time to apply, they don't think they're good enough and they chalk it up to, and I'm not experienced enough, I'm a bad designer, this isn't for me type of situation. Most of the time when creatives approach me and ask me how to get into the full-time world and kind of consult me for advice, I always tell them that they never know what a company is truly looking for until they reach out. A company could be looking for a mid-tier designer, a senior designer, a junior designer, or maybe even a creative director. But one thing that's very important to keep in mind is they're all looking for different styles. There's not one company that is not looking for something specific. I have very rarely seen job postings and companies go, we basically will take anyone, because that's just simply not true. Let me tell you the story about how I literally got my dream job just by simply applying and taking a risk. I took graphic designing very seriously to the point where I was even doing things like missing school and kind of, putting that first above my social life. And I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way too, because I know if you clicked on this video, you want to be a full-time creative so badly. And I completely understand the feeling, and I also completely understand the rush. But back in high school, I was completely lost. I had no idea what to do, whether or not I wanted to be in the gaming space, I wanted to do esports, I wanted to push my boundaries and do traditional art, maybe even NFTs. Until one day I came across one of my dream opportunities at Oni Studios. I've been watching a little bit about what Oni Studios was becoming while I was kind of finishing out my final years of high school, and I saw that they needed a graphic designer. Now, I absolutely panicked and I got extremely excited because I saw that, one of my dream jobs was hiring. Now, was there doubts in my mind that I wasn't going to get the job? Absolutely. But once I applied, I made sure to fit all the ethical criteria, make sure I had a really nice cover letter and resume. And before you know it, I was reached out to for an interview. The moral of the story is you never truly know what opportunities you can actually get a hold of or what opportunities you can seek out for yourself if you just take a chance on you. There's a big confidence problem across the creative agency, and I would argue that it's probably one of the biggest things that hold creatives back from entering the full-time world. Another thing I see creatives struggle with that are trying to go full-time is the eerie battle of passion versus profession. And basically what that means is you have such a desire, such a passion to make this a full-time gig, but you've made it a hobby for so long that you can't really get into your own head that this could be a career in the first place. Everybody knows that you eventually start somewhere, and that somewhere can sometimes mean working for free. Where passion and profession can really bite you in the butt is when you stay kind of in the free realm and you don't kind of take the leap to understand your own personal creative value. This eventually will lead to severe burnout, especially if you surround yourself with people who are also successful and have that drive to go full time. You will slowly start to notice that they will be advancing through the ranks and really just pushing for a full-time gig, helping out other brands while you're just kind of there working for free. So in that case, it's very important to establish your value and know how to take your value and use it as a strength. And that leads me to my next pillar of why graphic designers and artists struggle so much to go full time, and that is work and life balance. I think we can all agree that work and life balance is by far the most challenging thing to master as a creative. And when I say hard to master, I mean even myself, I am still battling with it till this day. But I could not stress enough how valuable personal time is when it comes to basically grinding out a graphic design career or an art career. Make sure that you save up time to go hang out with your family or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever the case is. Because regardless, at the end of the day, your family, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever it may be, will be your strongest support system through all of this. Sure, you will have people in the industry who support you, but it will never quite hit the same as those who love you the most. Now, I know unfortunately it may be hard to kind of get a hold of some encouraging people in your life to really give you motivation, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and open up my comment section down below for you guys to type anything that you are feeling, and I will go ahead and reply with, you know, the best advice I have or anything like that. And the last pillar before we get into the biggest reason why graphic designers cannot push the full-time world is marketing fatigue and saturation. We've all been there, especially with the state of Twitter and other social media platforms. It can be extremely difficult to make your mark on social media as an artist. But I'm here to reassure you that the graphic design market is purposefully competitive. For example, it's okay to look at other creators and kind of ideate where you're going to go with your own content. It's important to put your own spin on things, but it's also important to not steer away from the originality of the original idea, if that makes sense. For example, if I do a Photoshop tips and tricks series, I'm going to add my own little spin on it. For example, maybe it's adding subtitles, changing the color correction, changing the type of content that I am covering in Photoshop. And believe it or not, it's not just content that goes out on Twitter, but it also goes the same for your art pieces. You see an absolutely awesome OC on your timeline, maybe it's of a figure that's trending right now. Go ahead and recreate it in your own art style. There is no shame in following a trend or kind of understanding trends to gain elevation for your personal brand, as long as you do it right and you don't do it scummy. And when I say scummy, I mean literally just copying and pasting the artwork that was made and just calling it a day. Now, one of the biggest reasons why graphic designers do not take the leap into the full-time world is because of criticism and stress. Now, let's face it, graphic design and being a creative in general is one of the most stressful jobs you could probably have. And with current events like AI on the rise and Photoshop implementing AI, the future is unexpected. But that does not mean that you have to freak out, and that also does not mean that you have to stop where you are and pick a different passion. See, graphic design and art is not just making something visually look cool. Graphic design is solving problems. Art is solving problems. And I just simply believe that in the future, that aspect of design just can't be replaced or replicated by robots. And in the realm of criticism, that could also be very difficult because not a lot of artists know how to take constructive criticism. I know for a fact that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn to kind of, you know, have the rite of passage into the full-time world to begin with. Because another truth is, when you do enter the full-time world, you will rarely land on one revision. I really hope that this video gave you the confidence to go out and apply to a bunch of jobs and keep expanding your wonderful crafts. And if you are one of those graphic designers that is severely stressed about AI taking over, I want you to go ahead and do me a solid and go ahead and click this video where I experiment with ChatGPT and essentially prove that it can be used more as a tool rather than a burden. I hope to see you guys out more in the industry, and if you have any questions for me, do not hesitate to leave your questions down below, regardless if it has nothing to do with the tips that I covered in this video. My ultimate goal is to help you guys out the most, and I know for a fact you guys are unbelievably talented. So without further ado, start creating some art, and I will see you guys next Friday with a brand new video. Peace out.